Hey, welcome to Eagle Rock Brewery. I'm Jeremy Robb, one of the owners and the founders and kind of wearer of many hats here. So I'll give you a quick tour of the brew house and show you the process. The brewing process starts in here. This is our grain room, and you can see that Eric is milling grain right now. It's grinding it up so that all of the starches and potential sugars inside will be available when we mix it with water. And so it's collecting in that hopper, and then later in the process, the auger tube that goes from the bottom of that hopper is going to go up through the wall, and that's going to go into the brew house. So you can see that auger tube coming up through the wall, follows over to this tube right here, and earlier today, Eric brewed the first batch of a 30-barrel batch. And so there was a tube connected to direct the grain into this tank. And then as the grain is falling into this tank, we're mixing it with water, and we let that mixture soak for about 20 minutes. And what happens when it's soaking is enzymes that are in the grain convert all of the starches in that grain into sugars, and we end up with this sugary liquid called wort. And then we're going to take that and pump that over to our kettle and move on to the next part of the process. So you can see in this tank right now, this is the mixture of grain, or the barley malt, and water, and the wort, or the liquid, has been draining off, and you can actually see it here. It's coming out of this tank and getting pumped into the boil kettle. So what will happen is the grain stays behind in that tank. There's a filter pipe on the bottom that allows the liquid portion to flow out, and the grain stays behind. That grain will shovel out at the end of this brew session, and we'll put it in 55-gallon drums. That'll go off to a farmer to feed his dairy cattle. Right now, the wort is being transferred into the kettle, and that's going to be brought to a boil probably in the next half hour or so. That'll start boiling, and we'll boil that for an hour, add our hops, and then after the boil process, we're going to cool it down by passing it through this device here, which is a heat exchanger, and then into one of these fermenters. And in the fermenters is where we're going to add the yeast. And yeast is really what makes the beer beer. Yeast are single-celled organisms that will eat sugars, and in this case it's malt sugars. They're going to eat those sugars, and they're going to convert them into alcohol, and CO2, and flavor compounds. And that's ultimately what's going to make wort into beer. We're going to pump it out of the fermenters and into these two tanks over here, which are called bright tanks, and that's where we carbonate the beer, or just adjust the level of carbonation that's already in the beer. They're pressurized tanks that have a device inside called a carbonating stone, and it allows us to inject CO2 into the beer, and then the beer will absorb that and become carbonated. And then once the beer is in those tanks, it's finished and it's ready to be packaged. So we'll either package it in bottles, or we'll package it in kegs. And you can see that Andrew is filling kegs over here, which he'll then take over to our distributor. And then those will go out into the marketplace, restaurants and bars all over town. So.